I'm joined now rather by Trust TV's business correspondent in the person of Yusuf Akogu, and we shall be discussing, how Nigeria can, grow its housing sector and develop its real estate sector. Thank you, Yusuf, for, coming on the program today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
But when you hear, things like that, I'm starting to lose interest in investing in the housing sector. I'm starting to lose interest in, owning a house. What crosses your mind?
It really calls for concern because housing is one of the basic needs of man. As a man, you need where to lay your heads. You need a shelter on your head as well. So given when people are beginning to lose interest, then it actually means, I don't think a lot of people want to go and sleep on the streets or go to homeless or become homeless like we see in some places in America and other places. So the issue of housing is very, very important, and I think government need to get involved to see how they can address some of the challenges in the sector. As you know, if you look at the World Bank report in 2023, according to World Bank, actually 15.53 Nigeria is facing about 15.53 housing deficit. But if you look at the Nigerian government statistics, about 28 million housing deficit. We need about 21 trillion naira investment in that sector. And if you want to look at the current rate of naira now, probably that investment now may probably have doubled or if not triple as well. So I think government needs to do quite a whole lot. If you look at the Ministry of Housing, the minister there is doing so well. I think as at 2 or 3 days ago, there was a flag off in Kano, a mass housing estate in Kano, and so many other places. Yeah. So we look to see how this government intervention can actually help in bringing down the cost. Making housing available for Nigerians.
Yusuf, I completely agree with you, especially regarding, the housing deficit that you've spoken of. Over 28 million houses would have to be built annually in order to bridge that gap.
Absolutely.
But on one hand, we have, of course, the interventions we're seeing from government. You've spoken about them already. But on the other hand, people are saying, we don't want to wait for government. We want to be able to afford these things. And that's when conversations like, interest rate come into the picture, or even, strengthening the naira. But let me hear what your thoughts are regarding that, especially, around interest rate.
Yes, whatever. The survival of everyone, to me, I keep saying it is tied to government policies. All right. So when some people are trying to separate government from the economy, I tend to disagree with that. When government introduces various policies and programs, it impacts either positively or negatively on the citizens. If you look at what happened when this government came in, we talked about the issue of subsidy is there in the public domain. When subsidy was taken out, the naira unification, and of course the floating of the naira, we actually know the implication that all this is having on cost of living in Nigeria as of today. Of course, as at yesterday, there was also a news that came from the NNPC that is suggesting that there's going to be an increase in the PMS, all right, the pump price of petroleum. So when you look at all of that, and then you try to, given the fact that all of these things, the burden is being passed to the citizens. So what I think as a people we should do, and as a government, I think we need to begin to look at the model that works in the Western world. In the Western world, it's a place where you can actually own a house. Our mortgage system here is very, 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 very poor. I think we need to restructure the mortgage system whereby if you want to own a house, you don't need to come and make an outright payment or make a 50% payment. Once you have a working mortgage system like you have in America, in the US, in the UK and other places, where you can own a house and of course continue your payments. Some pay as long as 30 years, 25 years, 50 years. All right. So when we can actually have that very structured mortgage system, it will be more easy for you and I to own a house without necessarily we don't really need to have millions of naira to be able to, put all the millions together to buy a house. With the little we are actually earning, you can actually pay gradually, and then at the end of the day, you own your own house. But here we are having the challenges. You need to pay for everything. You need to, for those that want to construct, like you rightly mentioned, complaining of the cost of materials and so many other things. You need to get the land, you need to get the building materials, which the price, as you know, most of the things we use here, they are imported. And the cost of, with the issues that we are having in the forex market, the prices of things have actually gone up. So, and all this thing is impacting on cost of building as well. As we speak now, for you to build a standard house, a house of your taste, of your desire, you need nothing less than 30 million naira in Nigeria. So as a civil servant, where are you going to get that from? or as a worker that probably earn, that is not really earning so much. Where are you going to get that from? So that is what I think, that a structured mortgage system will actually help every Nigerian.
You've made a very valid point, Yusuf. I mean, for civil servants that earn as little as, I would say, the minimum wage, what's even the possibility of them owning a house in their lifetime?
The minimum wage cannot even buy a bag of rice.
Unfortunately, so. Completely agree with you, Yusuf. But I also believe that it is important that conversations around mortgage are had, because not so many people even know what it means, to even approach, for instance, the Federal Mortgage Bank and say, oh, what is the plan that you have in place for me to, start a construction, a real estate construction. But let us move away from that now. You spoke to, the government's policies having a way of trickling down, and unfortunately it's always the citizens that bear the brunt of all of these policies. You also spoke to the NNPC and the increase in the price of fuel that is expected. But would you say that these policies are, or let's hear from you, are these policies, I mean, of course I know they are well intended, but is the timing appropriate?
Well, like me, anytime people are talking about the policy is good, the timing is wrong, I really do not want to believe with that. I don't really believe in that, because when the policy is good, it doesn't matter when it comes. But the basic things that we must know is that a good policy can actually be, you rate a good policy based on the impact it's having on the people, not the timing. So what I think we need to do as a country is to be honest to ourselves as a people. There's a whole lot of distrust between the government and the people. People no longer believe in government. Initially, what we were told that the subsidy is a scam. Few people are benefiting from first subsidy. Why is it so difficult for government to make publicly the list of these people that are benefiting from subsidy? All right. To me, I think that is where it should start from, not coming to take out subsidy. All right, let Nigerians know the people that are benefiting from subsidy. Secondly, exchange rate unification. We said, okay, there are a whole lot of currency racketeering and so many other things that is not really benefiting, that is making few people to be rich. We keep asking, who are these few people? All right. So to me, the larger interest of every policy of government is it should be the people. So when your policy is in any way making people to be poor, I mean, pushing a lot of people into poverty, I really do not think that kind of policy is something that one can actually say is well intended or the timing is wrong. I don't believe in all those timing is wrong or timing is not wrong. So I believe that the good policy should have a positive impact on the people, and if it's not having any policy that is not having positive impact on the people, then it actually shows that that policy, in any way, if it needs to be withdrawn, government should be able to own up and say, okay, this policy that we have introduced is not in any way making the needed impact as we expected, and of course, therefore, we're actually taking it back. But then we find it difficult to do that here. We try to, come up with different excuses to defend policies that obviously is not well intended for the interest of the people. We're talking about the subsidy gone but again, we also know that the government also know that they are paying for a subsidy, and that is becoming a public knowledge now, given what we're hearing from the NNPC from yesterday.
Well, I completely agree with you, Yusuf. You talked about the policies and the intentions behind policies. I mean, policies should improve the livelihood and well-being of the people, and not, continually increase the gap or the disparity between the rich and the poor. But I would like for us to touch on, the said artificial inflation around, the cost of building materials. While I was going through, social media comments, some people came out to say that they believe that that the inflation is actually artificial, and that even in the areas where the price increase does not necessarily have to happen, you still see these things happen. For instance, I remember my conversation with, I believe it was the president of the Building and Construction Association of Nigeria, where he talked to issues around the price of cement, the monopoly around the market, and whether or not cement should, inflation should impact cement, seeing that most of the natural resources are gotten from here in Nigeria. But what are your thoughts on that, Yusuf?
Well, the one thing that we must understand about what some people call artificial inflation is the fact that when it is also we'll still go back to government policies. All right, when fuel was sold at 180 naira or 195 naira, what was the cost of cement at that time?
I believe it was about 3,000.
About 2,000 something, 3,000
even
something,
less.
Or less. How much were parents paying for school fees at the time? It was less. How much were bus drivers collecting at the time? It was less. But when the cost of fuel moved from 180 to over 600 or 700 naira, and it impacted on everybody's expenditures, what happened? For example, if I'm selling a tomato, for example, if I'm in fact maybe I'm a tomato trader, and the school fees, the school where I sent my children to, the school increased the school fees by about, let's say, 100%. My only reliable means of livelihood is the tomato I trade, right? So what I need to do for me to raise that money is to increase the cost of tomatoes. Do you understand? So once you increase I need to increase the cost of tomatoes so that I can raise money for me to be able to meet up with with my own expenditure. That is what people call artificial inflation. It's not artificial inflation. It also boils down to government policies. Once it is affecting me, I need to find a means to raise money to meet up with my daily expenditures. So that is what I think is happening. So with regard to cement, Dangote is a very big player in that sector. We also have Boa and so many other cement companies playing in that sector. Their cost of production have gone high. They need to pay more. They need to pay more. The overheads has also gone high. They need to pay their workers more salaries. So the only way they can actually raise that money is by pushing the burden on you and I.
I completely agree with you, Yusuf. But according to data, about 700% increase. Is that the real picture from your own point of view? You talked about an increase of maybe 100% or 200%, but according to data, there is an increase of 700% in 1 year when you're talking about building and construction materials in the market. Because I know the price of a bag of cement currently goes for about 8,500 naira and 9,000 naira. So in a year, there's been about 700% increase. But go on with your thoughts, Yusuf.
Well, whether the 700% increase or I think it depends on the cost of production. All right, because you need to put quite a whole lot of things together. You don't just go and pick the cement from the ground. All right, you need to buy diesel. How much is a liter of diesel today? You don't know how much they spend on cost of diesel. You don't know how much they spend on cost of transportation. That all those things need to be put into consideration. You need to also look at how much they pay their staff, the overhead cost. There are also some material that also need to import, the cost of maintaining their machines. Most of these things are not done locally, so they need to source for dollars. You know how much was dollar when this government came in? It was around 450, 500. So there's 1,600 and something. So all of this, and if you add them together, is actually why we actually see what we're seeing. And I keep saying that as long as the government continue to allow this vacuum, the manufacturers or the traders or every marketers will continue to increase prices arbitrarily.
Well said, Yusuf. I mean, to be fair, like you've rightly stated, the cost of production has a way of, impacting the final price that is taken to the market.
Absolutely.
And the entire business climate in Nigeria. Unfortunately, last week we did see a report from the Presidential Ease of Doing Business Committee, scoring most government organizations quite low. And talking about the business environment in general, we have also seen, the mass exodus of most multinationals leaving Nigeria due to the unfavorable business policies. But I would like for us to touch on, alternative solutions to the high cost of building material. Excuse me, of building materials. What would you recommend, that could be used in place of, say, cement alternatives at this point?
What could be used in place of cement? Maybe we should start emulating what is happening in modern world. Maybe we'll start using plywood. Yes, well, apart from cement, there are also bricks blocks that I can actually use. Maybe we should begin to invest in that sector as well.
Maybe we should go back to, mud housing. Mud houses,
absolutely. But I think, on a serious note, I think quite a whole lot needs to be done. we can actually begin to develop the local capacity. You understand? Begin to, there are so many building materials that can actually be produced here instead of, allow traders to import them from abroad. What is happening? Why is Ajakuta Steel Company not working? Quite a whole lot of steel and iron. Some of the irons that we use in our buildings can actually be produced there. There's iron ore also in Itakwe in Delta State. That area can actually be looked at. You go to, there's another one in Osun State, in Osogbo. We can actually look at that sector as well. So what government can also begin to look at giving subsidies. Since we don't have subsidy on fuel anymore, you can begin to give subsidy on building materials as well, and see how you can actually, attract more people into that sector. Because the cost of building now in Nigeria, as we speak, is very, very high. For you to build a very good house of your taste, you know that it's going to cost you quite a whole lot, given the current reality that we are having in the country. So talking about alternative arrangement, if you look at it really, you discover that in this part of the world, we don't really have so many options.
But I agree with your point on, building local capacity. You talked about the steel production in Ajakuta, and what comes to mind is, the rise in not just the price of cement, but iron rods to granite. I mean, it's an entire value chain.
Yeah.
And every part of this value chain, has a role to play regarding the current inflationary pressures we're facing. But let us speak regarding inflation projections. There has been, quite diverse numbers I've seen so far. Inflation currently at 34.4%, I believe. What are your projections regarding, inflation and maybe food inflation, which currently stands at over 40%?
Well, my projection is that, for 19 months, inflation was on the upward trajectory. It was for that long time. It got to 34.19% before it dropped recently. I think what we witnessed in July, in July inflation is more like what I'll attribute that to the harvest season. All right, it's harvest season. Quite a lot of commodities are coming into the market. Of course, it's naturally the prices of commodities are bound to come down. I don't think it's the CBN policies of increasing NPR that is beginning to have any effect. Because I spoke with the tomato producer, and he told me that, look, they had earlier projected that the prices of tomato and some other vegetables was going to drop from between August and November. And I asked him, after November, what happens? He said, probably we may see a spike, an increase in the prices of those commodities. And of course, I do agree with him that what we are having now is not sustainable. And even if we see a drop in the inflation numbers for the month of August, I really do not think that is something that is going to continue to the end of the year. It's a trajectory that I think will also, return back to where it were again as it were before. So, with regards to food inflation, it's going to continue to go high because government is hinting at increasing the pump price of petroleum, and of course, we know the impact that this have on our daily activities. So I expect inflation to continue to rise. Probably we may see a decline in the month of August, but again, September, I expect it to pick up from there.
You are re-echoing the thoughts of most economic watchers and economic analysts that I have, interacted with lately regarding inflation numbers. We expect to see, some form of stability right now. You talked about the planting season and harvest seasons, and then towards the end, of the year, moving towards the seasonal periods and, celebratory periods, we also would expect to, see inflation increase again. But before we go, 2 recommendations from you regarding, the housing sector in area of government policies and government intervention. What would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be where we need to structure a mortgage system.
Definitely.
I think we need to have, states can have mortgage. We don't need to necessarily rely on the federal government for everything. There's federal mortgage system. State government can have their mortgage system and be sincere about it. I think what we need to do is to take out the corrupt nature, the corruption from the system. If we're able to get that and we get a working mortgage system, the issue of housing deficit that we are having, like we talked about earlier, that we need 28 million housing units every year at the cost of 21 trillion naira. That was as our 2023 for us to be able to meet up. So I think we need to have a sincere conversation with government at all levels in such a way that we can have a structured mortgage system at all levels, states, local government, and of course the federal level, for us to be able to address that.
Well said, Yusuf. Akogu, Trust TV's business correspondent. He has helped dissect the conversation around, inflation and how it has impacted in housing development. Like he rightly stated, about 28 million houses would have to be built annually for Nigeria to breach the current, housing gap that exists. Thank you, Yusuf, for, the insight and the banter. It's been indeed very interesting today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And that's all that we will be taking on today's edition of Business Daily. But keep the conversation going on social media. And let us hear what your thoughts are. How are you as a developer? How have you been impacted by the inflationary pressures? And for those of you who are, considering investing or considering starting up a building project, are you, encouraged to go on that project? Well, let us hear from you, and we'll be there to, engage with your comment. My name is Chiamaka Enendu. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.